Hello, and welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of Women in Retail Leadership Circle, which is a membership-based community of executive women at leading retailers and brands. Today, we have a special episode featuring my discussion with Beth Laughton, the president and CEO of REI Co-op, from our Women in Retail on the Road event in Seattle, which took place last month. During that chat, we talked about leading with purpose. Marybeth draws from her experience leading some of the world's most iconic consumer brands and shares insights on embedding DEI into company culture, navigating brand responsibility in a values-driven market, and empowering the next generation of women leaders. She also reflects on pivotal moments in her career, her passion for mission-led growth, and what excites her most about the future of retail, innovation, and leadership. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation. I'm so thrilled to be here with Marybeth.
Yeah, so good to see you.
We met in the
past.
past.
Years
It's been
ago.
a while. So we're thrilled to be here. So we are excited to jump in. We're going to talk about leading with purpose. So I'm going to just start. For those of you who don't know Marybeth, tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about your role now at REI and all that good stuff.
Great. Well, first of all, I'm just excited to be here. I've always had a real interest in just, helping women in their careers and understanding the obstacles they're facing and whatever I can do to help with that. So just happy to be here. A little bit about me. So I grew up in the Midwest, in Chicago, during the Chicago Bulls era, if anyone knows that. I was a huge fan. I was an athlete myself, so that was great for my childhood.
What was your sport?
Well, I played basketball, tennis, and softball, so all three. But I definitely was like a huge basketball fan. I had that Michael Jordan wingspan poster on my wall, and I was really into it. And then I went to my undergrad at Indiana University. I was a finance and accounting major, which I didn't really know what that meant at the time. But then I went to McKinsey & Company for my first job out of undergrad, which is a consulting firm.
Sure.
And it was during the late 90s, which was kind of, if people remember, during really the rise of e-commerce and the dot-com boom. And so I happened to be staffed on projects that were in the e-commerce industry, so go.com, if people remember this was before kind of Google became, the search engine. So I was on projects like that, and I just totally got the bug for digital and e-commerce at that point, really early in my career. And so that was a theme that then carried forward kind of even till today. But I spent time at McKinsey, and then I was going to business school after that. I went to Harvard Business School, and I knew I was going, so I wanted to do a year as a nonprofit. And I mention it because it was a women's microenterprise organization, helping low-income women start their own businesses. And it was just such a meaningful part of my career. So I did that early on, knowing that it might be a while later in my career where I'd have the time to do that again. So I did.
So it's always been in your soul blood.
Totally. And I'd love, over time to get back into that even more. And then I went to business school. I was the president of the Women's Association at Harvard, which is awesome, and just got to meet so many women that way. I then went to Nike for about 10 years after business school in a variety of roles, which I'm happy to talk about my path there. But I'd say the theme was that I knew it was early in my career, and I wanted to make sure that I really learned enough functions, because I knew I wanted to be a general manager at some point, but I wanted to have the credibility. So I did a stint in strategy and merchandising. I went really deep in planning. And then I started to take on general management roles from there, and but had that kind of foundation in place. So after Nike, I went to Sephora for about 8.5 years, led the digital and stores business there, which was an amazing opportunity. We were kind of in high growth mode, which was fun. Then I went to be the CEO of Athleta, which is a women's athletic brand. I love that brand. It's very values driven as well, which is, I'll talk about a theme later, but had an amazing experience there. Came back to Nike to lead the direct-to-consumer business, which was a full circle moment for me, because when I was there the first time, it was 5% of the business, and I came back when it was half the business, and it was just a really interesting way to kind of feel like I had a full circle kind of career moment there. And then 9 months ago, joined REI.
Yeah, that's great.
Here I am, and I also have served on 3 boards. So I served actually on the REI board many years ago.
Oh,
I had to leave
interesting.
when I went to Athleta because of competitive. I was on the board of Impossible Foods for a lot of years and now on Instacart's board. So just a lot of different experiences on boards. And I guess last thing I'd say is just, some themes throughout my career that I was reflecting on this. And I think I've been really consistent in kind of the type of opportunities I've gone after. So, the first is kind of consumer-centric brands that I personally have a connection to. That's made a huge difference to me and just my enjoying those roles. The second is, being in places where I can really drive growth because I love driving growth and innovation. And so I kind of look at for that every time I'm taking a position. And then places that have strong missions and can give back and feel like I'm doing more than just driving the day-to-day business, and that's just really fulfilling to me. So those are been some of the themes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I know, you've worked for so many purpose-driven brands.
Yeah.
Are there any leadership like styles or principles you can talk about that you gleaned from that or that you can share with the audience?
You mean being part of a mission-driven brand?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, being at a place, I guess I have kind of two thoughts. One is just in general around, how to lead teams. I feel like I've learned a lot over the years on that, which I'm happy to talk through. But specifically on the mission and vision piece, I think being part of organizations that are mission-driven, to me is just so amazing because I just really believe that companies can do well and drive strong businesses and give back and have impacts to their communities. And actually that there's a ton of synergy between those two if they're done well. I think customers these days expect companies to take responsibility, expect them to do things to have broader impact. And they often, try to actually or put their wallet, to places that do that. So one, I just believe in it. Two, I think, companies with missions, one thing I've learned over the years is needing to just be really consistent in those values and that mission, whatever it is. I've also been at companies that, say they have missions and then when times get tough, they don't really have that guidepost and they may make kind of short-term decisions that are in the best interest maybe at that time, but not really the right thing for the long term. And so I've really learned that being part of a mission-driven organization, it's like you have to stand really strong and firm in those commitments.
I feel like especially nowadays, people can sniff it out.
For sure.
If you're not being completely true and honest about the mission.
If you don't make decisions against that. Yeah.
And one thing I did want to ask, though, is how do you balance mission and margin?
Yeah.
I mean, that I feel can be kind of, what's the word, a little sticky.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think I get that question a lot, especially at REI. It's actually pretty straightforward in the way that we think about it, which is there's no mission without margin, or we also say there's no purpose without profits, right? And the spirit of that is that we really have to drive a good business in order to be able to give back to our communities and have impact. And so it does really help to have that clarity, right? Because otherwise sometimes it can feel overwhelming of like, how should we make a decision in any given moment? And of course, we're always considering, a lot of stakeholders, particularly at REI, which is what I love about, our business. It's very multifaceted, but it is very clear that we've got to make sure we have a strong, sustainable business first and foremost, so then we can have the most impact on society as possible, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about REI since we're kind of talking about that now, talking about the mission-driven company. So you have a new strategic plan at REI. It's focused on being the most trusted retailer for people who love the outdoors, and it also embraces a customer-centric mindset. So tell us about that. What does trust mean to you, and what is REI doing around that strategic plan and your role in it? I know it's a big question.
My team knows I could talk about this for hours, but I'm really excited about our strategic plan. So we called it Peak 28, Sending Together is kind of the tagline. And really the spirit of that is like, we need to do it as a team and we need to do it with our members and customers along the journey with us. It's a pretty ambitious 3-year vision for the co-op. And it is grounded in what you said, consumers and trust. So I could talk about those. When we present the plan and we've now kind of put it in front of a lot of audiences, we always start with our mission because it's really important to remind everyone that even as much as we're driving a ton of change in the business, our mission is not changing. So that's been really important to start with that. And then, yeah, we talk about being the most trusted retailer for people who love the outdoors. And each of those words is kind of explicit. And the trust word, I think, is something we're all rallying around because, REI is known for we have these amazing, if anyone's been to our stores, these Green Vest employees who are so full of, expertise and just wanting to help you find, what you're looking for. They have passion. And you can trust that you're going to get a great experience with them. But it also means, it serves as a guiding light for us because we sometimes have to make decisions thinking about trust being who we're trying to be, right? So things like a customer can trust that they can return a product to REI and have a long period of time to do that, right? That's a business decision we're also making that helps support that idea of trust or being in stock, right, in the products that people are looking for. So there's a lot of facets to it. So it really helps to have that kind of guiding light for us. And then the customer centricity of the plan is really, really important. We actually have it kind of, if you think about the one pager of our strat plan, customer directly in the center. And I know a lot of companies say that. I've been at a lot who say that. And I think the difference is that we're trying to make sure that we're actually using our customer and understanding our customer to make decisions for the business. So I always like to think about if you're sitting in a meeting and you're having this debate and you don't know which direction to go and there's arguments on both sides, it's how do you come back to what you think the customer really wants from REI at this moment? And it just helps cut through a lot of things really quickly. So our plan is really centered in understanding who our target customer is, and then how do we take that customer insight and who that customer is and help shape our strategic pillars of the plan. So it's
Customer first strategy.
Customer first
obviously.
strategy. Yeah, for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is there a name for the plan?
Yeah, well, it's Peak 28. So,
okay.
And that was meaningful too, because we're trying to symbolize, by 2028, we'll hit kind of a new peak for the co-op, but we purposely didn't call it Summit 2028. And that was, so even the visual is like a peak with another mountain kind of in the background. And that was on purpose because, the reality is we have a lot to do the next 3 years and we will take a big step forward, but there's no finish line. There's going to be another, summit for us to climb. And so I think that the title has meant a lot for the team, but also the tagline I mentioned of ascending together, ascending the peak as a team and with our customer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And how have you been able to get your team motivated around that?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's exciting for the company, but it would be great to just kind of talk through some of the challenges in a changed environment in any way that you're able to make it.
Yeah,
people motivated.
I think you hit on it, which is, one of the things we realized and we actually call out explicitly in the plan is the culture change that needs to accompany the strategic, changes we're trying to make. And I think about that a lot because I've been places where there's really great strategies on a page, but actually the culture isn't ready to go after those strategies. And so we explicitly actually made one of our 4 strategic pillars for the plan be around our culture and how we need to evolve it in order to make the whole thing happen. And so for us, one of the ways we've gotten people kind of excited about the plan is continuing to talk about the cultural change that'll go alongside it and celebrating people that are taking those actions. So at REI, we've kind of decided we want our culture to be connected, focused, and trailblazing. So we've picked those 3 words. It's part of our plan, and now we're celebrating at our monthly meetings and so forth when we're seeing teams show those characteristics. And I think it's helping bring the plan to life for teams because, it's not just the words on the paper. It's how we're all behaving to get after it together.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's all tied together. So,
that's great. That's the idea, yeah.
So we are at a women's event. So I'm going to ask a question about how, the outdoor industry has historically been geared toward and led by men.
Yep.
So as a woman at the helm of the industry's largest retailer, what opportunities do you see for other women at outdoor companies?
Yeah, I see lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
I think the outdoor industry is changing, as we speak, as are a lot of industries. But, you think about even the COVID period, just so many people realized how amazing the outdoors is, whether that's the emotional benefits or the physical benefits, and that includes a lot of women, right? And I think right now the opportunity for the industry is like, how do we welcome everybody into, this amazing industry and the outdoors world? And so it's so core. I love it because REI, we're all about kind of the outdoors is for everybody. And so it fits right in with that. And I think, I have a lot of women on my team. I think it's unusual for the outdoor industry, but we also see it as an opportunity. I was speaking at the Outdoor Summit, which is a big industry event in Denver in May, I think it was. And myself and the president of the North Face were the two kind of like keynote speakers.
Right.
It was amazing to me the number of people that came up to me and said, "We've never seen two women like be the keynotes at an outdoor industry conference."
Right.
And kind of the gravity of that hit me a bit because I'm like, I think this is it's a big moment for the industry to kind of widen and just invite a lot of people in. And if I can help lead that, I get really energized by that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great. And you have a lot of senior level women on
We
your
do.
team?
We
That's
do.
great.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like that's the way to do it, sort of succession planning,
Yep.
moving them up.
Yeah.
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 And so you've championed women throughout your career. Obviously,
Yep.
you spoke about it earlier. I mean, what advice would you give to women, today in the audience about rising into these executive roles?
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot I could say. Maybe the first thing I'd say is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my career is around kind of leadership style and embracing my own authentic style. And this was like a very big journey for me because I remember earlier in my career, I was at companies and I had coaches where, they were kind of giving me the advice of taking on a lot of characteristics of what I'd call a more typical male, often leader. So more authoritative, aggressive, kind of outgoing, gregarious. And that's just not who I am. And I had this moment actually when I was at Sephora where I had to have a discussion with my boss, the CEO, and the coach about, hey, I'm not comfortable with this coaching that I'm getting. I actually don't feel like that's authentic to who I am. I'm a more introverted leader. I like to ask a lot of questions. I'm not always like in the limelight, and I think that's okay. And I think that's like how I'm an effective leader, just,
Being yourself.
because it's natural to me. And so it was a really fascinating point in my career journey because I decided at that moment to like really embrace it. And so that would be one piece of advice I'd say is just whatever your natural style is, just embracing that because I think it just makes you a better leader. And I think it's actually helpful for other people to see that there's different leadership styles that can be successful. So that's maybe one. Another one I'd say is being kind of proactive in your career. That's been a big theme for me. I can remember kind of 3 different points at different companies where I proposed roles that didn't exist. And I went to people in the company and I gave it a lot of thought. And I said, where do I want to go in my, career where I see development for myself, but also I see opportunity for the company because it can't just be one way or the other. Wow. And so I, in all 3 cases, was able to make kind of different configurations of roles that fit both of those purposes. And it really helped propel my career in each case. But I had to be proactive about it. Yeah.
Could you give me maybe a little bit of it, more of an example for the audience? Like can you give me an example?
Yeah, I'll give you one. So they're all so different. But one was at Nike my first time around. I was pretty junior in my career and I had been trying to make a transition from like more strategic roles to more operational roles. And I knew, as I mentioned, e-commerce was kind of an area that I had a ton of passion and interest in. And I wanted to learn the nuts and bolts of it because I knew that if I was eventually going to lead bigger teams, I had to have that experience. So I went to the head of digital, who I'd gotten to know through some of my strategy role work. And I had always asked to be on assignments in the digital space just so I could learn more. But I went to him because I had built a relationship and I said, hey, I'm seeing at the time Nike had a group of subsidiary brands, Converse, Cole Haan, Hurley were the main ones. And I said, hey, I'm in my strategy role. I'm starting to work with the teams at those companies and they're trying to build their digital plans. Like, would you consider letting me play a more explicit role leading digital for the subsidiary brands so that I can learn more about the nuts and bolts of digital, but also I can help the enterprise because they clearly, like the CEOs of those 3 brands are wanting more help on their digital strategies. I could see there was a need. And so it turned into a role. It was such a great kind of launch platform for me to get credibility in that space and really learn. And then after that, I was able to build into more senior kind of general management type roles. So.
Wow, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Sort of look at the whole picture at the company and see if there's any holes.
Totally.
See how your skill set can make it, can match those holes.
Yep.
And then create a role for yourself. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really helpful to me. And then maybe the last one I'd mention is, I was reflecting on this, and I think one of the other things that's helped me is just being willing to take risks in my career and having the confidence and the trust in myself to do that. So an example was, it was further in my Nike career, the first time where I was offered to go to Europe to lead the Europe digital business. And it was a big kind of first big general management role. And it was a time in my career where I was pregnant with my first child. So this is like 18 years ago or something, 17 years ago. And I was going to have to move by myself to Amsterdam because my husband was at Nike as well and they weren't moving his role yet. So I had to go myself, pregnant for the first time, first big general management role. And it just felt, it felt very intimidating, right? But I also had the confidence in myself and I felt ready to do it. And I was so glad, it wasn't easy in a lot of ways, but I was so glad I did it in the end. And so having that experience earlier in my career helped me kind of always be willing to kind of go for things and trust in myself that I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know,
That's great. Trust your gut too.
Yep.
I wanted to talk a little bit about mentorship too. I know that mentorship is a big part of your leadership journey and also a big part of REI.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that? What does it mean to you? What are some examples of mentors that you've had and mentoring that you're doing?
Mentoring to me, interesting, I have had a lot of mentors in my career, but I actually don't really believe in the formal mentorship type of program. I just haven't seen much success in it. I often feel like it just feels a little bit forced and doesn't always kind of lead to an authentic relationship. And so what I've done throughout my career is seek out mentors. So again, be proactive, but really look to people that I find that I have a natural connection with and have characteristics of people of leadership things I'm trying to learn.
Right. So sort of seek them out.
And
then once you seek them out, kind of follow up.
For sure. That was the other thing I was going to say is the constant, being someone who is proactive about then following up and staying in touch. So I've had mentors over the years that I've been in touch with for 20 plus years now because I'm constantly kind of, reaching out to them and finding ways to stay connected. And the other thing I'd say is I'm trying to stay curious, and
thank you so much.
Thank you. When I have that time with a mentor, I don't just view it as oh, I'm checking a box, meeting with my mentor, or this is going to help my career. I'm oh, I'm really curious and I want to lean into this person to learn about a certain topic, right? And so just staying really curious with those mentors and finding ways to really get value out of it. But the consistency piece, I think, is really critical.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, we talk a lot about mentorship too at Women in Retail. And I think a lot of people, it's a little bit of a gray area. We don't really have a formal program, but it's not necessarily a formal program that's required. It's kind of just reach out to people that you have respect for,
totally,
that you trust and that you think are doing a great job in their business.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, you'll probably hear back from them. If not, maybe not right away, but at some point. So, yeah.
No, I love that.
So, I can't believe you. Oh my God, time is going by so fast. Okay, let's just talk about the end of the year. It's 2025, heading into 2026. So what are you most looking forward to professionally and personally as we round out the year?
Well, that's a good question. Gosh, well, personally, I am looking forward to the holidays just to have some time with my family.
Yes.
I was telling some people I met here that I've been commuting every week from Portland, where my family is, up here to Seattle.
Oh, wow.
So I have an apartment in Bellevue. I come in on Monday nights, I leave Thursdays, and my kids are teenagers and they're very busy, so I'm not missing too much, but still I'm looking forward to just having some more time with the family.
Yeah.
We're gonna travel. My kids are competitive tennis players, so we're gonna be all over the country at different tournaments, but we're
Wow.
gonna be together as a family.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
That's fun.
And then professionally, man, so much that we're doing at REI that I love. I'm excited about getting this Peak 28 plan kind of out and getting it really going as we round the corner to 26. Right now we're spending a lot of time on holiday. Like, we just got to execute the heck out of holiday, right? We're in the retail peak season, so that's very high in my mind. But I think the cultural challenge of what we're facing, and I mentioned earlier, is probably what I sit with the most, and I think is a key part for my role to be thinking about, of just, I do think we have a great strategy on paper, but I said to the board last meeting, I think the make or break is going to be if we can evolve the culture in the right way.
Sure.
And so I think a lot about that. So I'm thinking a lot about it right now. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah.
We're out of time, but thank you so much, Mary Beth. That was so great to chat with you.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review our show. Lastly, if you're a female retail leader interested in joining our community at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, visit womeninretail.com/apply. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.